am your child's secondary math 1 teacher. Have loved your students so far. It's been a great year so far. I know it's tricky. Some kids have had to stay home, quarantine, all these different things, but they're a good group of kids. They're fun to have in class, and really I haven't, had any issues so far. So happy to have your students and happy to get to interact with them on a regular basis. I'm just going to tell you a little bit about my class and the easiest way to check in on your student and to help your student. So we do cover secondary math 1, and you're asking like, what is that? So when we were kids, we took algebra 1 or geometry or algebra 2 and classes like that. 5 or 6 years ago, no, probably 7 or 8 years ago, they changed that up. They integrated those classes. So secondary math 1 really is a little bit algebra 1, about half geometry, and a little bit algebra 2, and we mix it all into one. So that's kind of where your student is at. So this first term so far, we've been doing geometry pretty much the entire time. We will take a test on September 28th and 29th, depending on if your student has me A day or B day. And then we get into more equations and inequalities and compound inequalities and things like that. So that's our next major unit. And then up until Christmas, after we do all the equations, we do functions, what's a function, what's not a function. And then we do linear functions, so graphing, writing equations or tables and graphs, situations, all those kinds of things. After Christmas, we'll get into exponential functions. We'll do systems of equations. I feel like I'm missing something. We have a whole nother geometry unit about quadrilaterals mainly and triangles and all those properties and solving equations with all those properties and that kind of stuff. And then we do some statistics. And I might have missed something in the second half. But that's kind of where we're at. So right now we've been doing a lot of geometry stuff. So like your geometry class in high school. So if you look at your student, the best way to keep up to date on what how your student's doing is to get on Skyward. I try and update Skyward almost every day of the week. I don't see your student necessarily every day, but I mean, 2 or 3 times a week, I'm updating Skyward because I want students and parents to know exactly where they are. So check on Skyward. A couple things. If your student has a 0 for a missing assignment, yes, your student can still turn it in. Yes, your student will still get credit. I hope and want and beg and plead basically for kids to do all that work, even when they're not at school. So you say, well, how do I get that? What if I don't have that assignment anymore? Here's how we go. So this is my Canvas class. This is what it would look like if your student logged in and showed you. So on my Canvas class, on this homepage, you can see this daily calendar. So today is the day I'm filming this is the 17th. So today we did angles with parallel lines. So you can look, this is if your student has to be home for a couple weeks, if your student's home throwing up and they just want to know. And I've been so impressed. I had a student came in today and she said, I missed the last couple classes. And I was like, oh, come here, I'll get you your notes. She's like, oh no, I did it at home. And I was like, it just made me so happy that they're like being proactive and doing that. But if your kid needs something, so you go to modules right here. And then you can look. So the first 3 assignments were math review from last year. They're there. And then all of this is our geometry unit. So let's imagine that your student missed today, which was angles and parallel lines. You could click right here. And this will take you to this page. So it tells you can print out the notes in the assignment. So these are the notes we took in class. It's the exact same notes I gave students in class today. They're blank. And just like I would give them a blank page of notes in class, they can print them out right here. This is the assignment I gave to all my students in class today too. And then here is this video. It's not me teaching live with kids in the class. It's me making a video just like I would right now. And I go through and I do all the notes. I highlight what I highlighted in class. I write extra notes on it. I explain the whole notes. So this is really helpful for a couple of reasons. If your kid's absent, they can catch all that up. 2, if your student comes home and is like, I don't remember what we did. And you're like, I don't remember how to do this. Watch the video with your kid. Most of them are 10 to 15 minutes. Occasionally there's one that's more like 18 minutes, but for the most part, it's 10 to 15 minutes. It's a good way for you to be able to help your students if you need to. And then it says complete the assignment. So they've completed this assignment right here that they've printed out just like they would in class. Then they can click enter answers here. It's not really a quiz. It calls it a quiz here. And then they go in and they just type in their answers. And then it grades it right there. So if your student's home for 2 weeks and you're worried like they're going to be so far behind, all of this is right here. So if you're looking at your student's grade and you're like, oh no, my student's missing these 3 assignments from the beginning, they're right here. You can still get those things cut up. So that's one thing on the grade. It's called an assignment. This is how it is. The next thing on their grade is participation. Students get 5 points every day for participating. It's basic things. Did you take the notes? Did you do the review? Were you on time? Did you have a pencil? Were you appropriately behaving? Did you participate? Those kinds of things. They get 5 points. Sometimes they're missing some. It's kind of self-evaluation in class. So if you look and it says participation, and it might say participation number 1 or number 2, it's just what order they've turned them into me. That's the next part of their grade. The third part of their grade is assessments, which is like quizzes and tests. So far, we've taken 1 quiz. Like I said, we'll take another quiz on September 28th and 29th, which could be about when you're watching this or right after, depending. Those are the assessments. The assessments do count for more. You should know that after the kids take the assessments, I give them back, and they can earn partial credit back for making corrections. So if your kid has a really low score, there's a couple things you need to check on. There's a possibility if they've missed a day of school, they missed the day that they could do corrections. So they can come in and talk to me. I can help find a time where they can still do those corrections and get points back. If they do the corrections and they still just have done horribly, again, have your student email me and I can work with them to help them get that up. But get the homework turned in, participate in class, do those assignments. As of right now, going back to my modules, I do not have the big quizzes and tests on Canvas. That's what it's called. If your student's home for 2 weeks and wants to do that, then have your student email me and I can give them the quiz, but I don't have it on there for all students because we do it on paper because I'd like to see their work. Also, another thing to know about, there is math lab on Tuesdays and Wednesdays and Thursdays after school. It's in Mrs. Butterfield's room. Miss Butterfield's room, it's 223. And that's from 1:45 to 2:45. So if your student's really struggling, Miss Butterfield's in there, and Miss Belknap, who is our school's math aide, is in there, and it's a good place to go in and get help. I am always willing to help your student. If they have questions, have them come talk to me, or you can email me or call me, and we can see what we can do to help them. I want your student to be successful. There's nothing better than when your student realizes that math is not as horrible as they've always thought it was. Today, in one of my classes, kids said, I'm learning. And I said, that's why I come to school every day, just to hear those words. And I don't hear them every day. And sometimes I know they're really frustrated. But when it finally makes sense, it's the best thing in the world. So that's a little bit about me. That's a little bit about how the class is going and how to help your kid. I try to respond to emails really, really quickly. So if you have questions, please reach out to me because I want your students to be successful. I hope you have a great day. And now I